All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for the other half of the college football prospect watch series. And now we're doing the defensive side of the ball. We're looking at some defensive positions, not all of them, but most of them, the ones that I think are particularly interesting. And I got to tell you, I really liked what I saw on this side of the ball for the most part. The offense, I could take or leave. This, pretty good. We actually got some exciting stuff from the nose tackle spot this week. I want to talk about this. Usually I only have two guys. This week I had three. Now, granted, two of them are not full nose tackles, right? Deonte Walker of Kentucky, he plays a little bit more B gap stuff than A gap stuff. So when he gets to the NFL, he's not going to just be a nose tackle. He's too talented for that. But he does play a good chunk of his snaps in the A gap as a nose tackle. He had a really good game for Kentucky, 4 tackles, one for loss, half a sack, 6 quarterback pressures. That's something that you're definitely going to have to take note of as a college football fan right now. Did get called for 1 penalty and did miss 2 tackles. There's some stuff to fix, but 6 pressures when you're a 350, 360-pound dude is going to get my attention. And Kentucky only gave up 92 rushing yards, 3.2 yards a carry, really good. 67.4 PFF grade, and the only reason why it was that low was the tackling. 2 missed tackles, which, hey, don't miss tackles, but not bad. And the other guy, Kenneth Grant, the Michigan guy, he's another guy who's not a full nose tackle, but he plays a good chunk of his reps there, so he could be that in the NFL. 3 tackles, 1 for loss, 1 sack, 1 pass knockdown, or whatever you want to call it, batted pass. 4 pressures. And remember, Michigan has Graham. Mason Graham, he's their, 3-tech type, right? So Kenneth Grant does play a lot of snaps in that 1-tech role because of the nature of that Michigan defense, and he's still getting those pressures. And Michigan, you couldn't run on them. Minnesota had less than 40 rushing yards, so 1.5 yards a carry. Only a 63.7 PFF grade, but he's definitely making some hay right now, making waves. Now, this last guy is probably the more interesting one because he's a full nose tackle. This guy plays almost all of his snaps in A-gap, and this guy is going to be a true NFL nose tackle. From Cincinnati, the Bearcats, 4 tackles, 1 for loss, 4 pressures as a nose tackle. Almost every snap he plays is the nose. 4 pressures is really impressive for a guy like that. Now, the other side of this is that Cincinnati got run all over. 231 rushing yards allowed, 6.4 yards a carry. Interestingly enough, PFF did not blame him at all for that. They gave him a grade of almost 90. So Corleone, they think, did his job, even against the run, and somebody else really, really was messed up. So read into it as you will, but Corleone is, right, I would say probably my favorite pure nose tackle in this draft right now. And he's a guy who's actually feasible to get because he won't be a top pick because he is a pure nose. Okay, edge rushers. Some really good stuff this week. These 5 guys stood out to me the most. We got Princely Umanmian again. We talk about him almost every week. Dude's a killer for Ole Miss. 5 tackles, 3 for loss, sack and a half, 4 QB pressures. Ole Miss allowed 20 points. Offense let them down. They didn't win. But the defense played fine. 73.4 PFF grade. He's out there grinding. Jordan Birch would be my next guy. Now, to be clear, Birch is not a true edge. He's almost 300 pounds. So either he's going to be a jumbo edge or he's going to be a 3-tech in the NFL, unless he loses a lot of weight. But that doesn't change the fact that he's playing well for Oregon. 2 tackles, both of them for a loss. 1 sack, including in there. 2 pressures. Oregon's defense only allowed 13 points. 72.8 PFF grade. So Jordan Birch grinding in there. Player that I talked about a little bit last year, and this year he continues to impress me. The big star of the week may have been Abdul Carter. He finally had a big breakout game for Penn State. 7 tackles, 4 for a loss, living in the backfield. 2 sacks. 1 of them he forced a fumble. 8 QB pressures. 8 quarterback pressures. And, it's Tonka Truck's JV stuff, right? Your Penn State's not playing great competition right now, but I have not seen a player get 8 pressures in a game very much. That's not something you expect to see when you pull up a game chart. Penn State only allowed 7 points, 89 PFF grade. So Abdul Carter is starting to really round into the first round pick type player, maybe even top 10 player that people were expecting. And remember, this guy could be like a Micah Parsons type where he ends up being able to play linebacker and edge. There's some very unique stuff there. Another likely first round guy that blew up on the scene this week was Nick Scourton, and he's been quiet so far, so it was good to see him for the Aggies, Texas A&M. Aggies have really fallen by the wayside nationally now that Wegman's hurt, but Nick Scourton's really good player, and he had a really good game for the Aggies this week. 4 tackles, all of them for a loss. Every tackle he had was in the backfield, including 2 sacks, 4 QB pressures, knocked down a pass, batted down a pass, whatever, forced a fumble. Only real problem he had was he missed 2 tackles, which, hey, that's a big chunk of your potential tackles in a game. That's not okay. But A&M only allowed 17 points. He had a 70 PFF grade. It would have been probably like a 90-something if he didn't miss the 2 tackles. Final, Landon Jackson of Arkansas, the Razorbacks. He had another standout game. 8 tackles, 3 for loss. Look at these stud edges living in the backfield on pretty much every level. 2 sacks, 2 QB pressures, 21 points allowed by Arkansas, 67.1. So he had a standout game as well. A lot of plays made. And yeah, that's a really impressive set of edge stuff, in my opinion. 8 pressures for Abdul Carter. That's like, okay, I'm paying attention now. All right, now we go to off-ball linebacker. I could only really find 4 guys this week. It wasn't great, but I did like what I saw from a couple of them, man. It was a little bit more of an exclusive group this week, but it was a good group. And by the way, Harold Perkins Jr. is now out for the year, so we will not be talking about him for the rest of the way. And it becomes very interesting because I think he's probably going to declare for the draft anyway if he ends up sliding to like the second round, because he was considered to be far and away the best linebacker prospect in the draft this year. But we've got Smael Mondon Jr. still at Georgia. Now, it was not a good day for Georgia's defense. They gave up, 500-something yards. They pushed up close to 600. But 5 tackles, including half a tackle for loss for Mondon. 1 pass deflection. He didn't miss 1 tackle. 0 catches allowed in coverage. Did not get targeted once. No, wait. He got targeted twice in the game. 0 catches. So he grinded in coverage. Alabama did get run all over, 173 yards. Or excuse me, Georgia got run all over, and they allowed 41 points. So it's not all great, but if you're trying to find somebody who seems to have done their job, you'd probably go with Mondon Jr. Barrett Carter, maybe the most explosive and effective individual play of the week for Clemson. Barrett Carter, still one of my guys. 10 tackles, 3.5 for loss. You don't see that often. Living in the backfield like that doesn't come cheap. He had a sack. He had 2 QB pressures. Allowed 2 catches for 3 yards. So really good coverage stuff, really clean. 236 rushing yards allowed, which, okay, we really don't like that. 5.4 yards per carry. A little bit ugly. But they only allowed 14 points. And he got the 85.6 from PFF. So there's way more positives than negatives there. And again, we're trying to take things individually. Jamon Dumas Johnson, the guy who transferred to Kentucky this most recent offseason from, I believe, Georgia, had a good game for Kentucky. 7 tackles, 1.5 for loss, half a sack, 1 pressure. Did miss a tackle, did get beat a little bit in coverage. 3 catches, 48 yards. Kentucky stopped the run well, only allowed 17 points. 67.6 PFF grade. So he's coming along a little bit here. And the final guy, and this was definitely a tale of 2 elements of football, right? Because Deontay Lawson, the Alabama linebacker, there's some really good stuff here, but there's also some really ugly stuff. He hits double-digit tackles, 2 for loss. He has it, including a sack, which was the pressure. 1 pass defensed. But he missed 1 tackle, allowed over 100 yards in coverage, 7 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. which is as bad as I've seen for any linebacker ever. Alabama stops the run really well. They only allow 80 rushing yards to Georgia, but 34 points. So you get the 58.1. You've got a lot of sweet, and then you've got a lot of sour here. This is all over the place. Deontay Lawson's game, all over the place. But I want to draw attention to him, because going forward, in this relatively thin linebacker group, Deontay Lawson may start to really establish himself. All right, so finally we're going to wrap up with defensive back. We're going to take a look at mostly safeties. Malachi Moore was impressive this week for the most part. 7 tackles, 2 passes defensed for Alabama, and a pressure. He did miss 1 tackle, but he allowed nothing in coverage. I want you to think about that. Alabama got passed on the whole game. Like, Georgia put up big numbers in the passing game against Alabama, right? They had to because they were coming back. And Malachi Moore did not allow a single catch in coverage. And he was in coverage plenty. Now, you can say whatever you want about maybe Carson Beck sucks, and he does. Right? Carson Beck, bleh. But that's still really good. 34 points allowed, which is not good, but hard for me to put this on him. 71.6. Another really good game. Another guy we haven't talked about in a while. We're going to talk about him this week. We have talked about him before. Xavier Watts of Notre Dame. The ball hawk. Had a pick this week. One of his many picks. 3 tackles, missed 1 tackle. The interception was taken back 34 yards, 2 passes defensed, only allowed 1 catch for 11 yards to Louisville. So clean in coverage. Louisville threw the ball for about 6.4 yards per play, yards per pass, 264 passing yards, 24 points, 72.8 PFF grade. So he continues to stand out. I like him as like a free safety option. I think he's going to be a really good ball hawk at the next level. Another little crush of mine would be Andrew Mukuba of Texas. He's been here before. He's here again. 5 tackles, 1 missed tackle. Safety is a missed tackle sometimes, by the way, guys. Let's just be real here. It's hard to get through a whole game as a safety and not miss at least 1 tackle. You're trying to tackle guys that are bigger and stronger than you mostly. 1 pass defensed. Only allowed 2 catches for 8 yards the whole game. So he kept the coverage stuff really clean. I believe he's mostly playing free safety for them as well, by the way. So the fact that nothing's getting behind him is very notable. 144 passing yards on the game. 6.3 yards per pass. 13 points allowed. 82.4 PFF grade. Very talented player. And another Texas guy, and this is a guy we talk about almost every week, Jahdae Barron of the Longhorns, who is a nickel corner with some linebacker upside. 6 tackles. 2 passes defensed. Did allow 3 catches for 18 yards, so nothing big. I think it was on 5 targets, by the way. So 5 targets, 18 yards. Sign me up. 144 pass. Same numbers as Mukuba. PFF grade not nearly as high, but I really like Barron as a passing down defender who can play nickel, can play linebacker, and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Final guy, Billy Bauman Jr. of Oklahoma. 8 tackles. He didn't miss 2 of them. Allowed 3 catches for 11 yards on like 5 targets, which is fine. One of them was a touchdown, though, so the numbers look a little worse. Oklahoma gave up a lot through the air, over 10.5 yards per pass, but very little of it was on Bauman's head. And they only allowed 21 points, 58.6 PFF grade, not great, but he was all over the place making plays for an Oklahoma defense that has had to do more than they usually have to do. All right, that's it for this week. That's everything I got on the defensive side of the ball. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to get out of here. See you guys later. Go Hawks. We're going to have at least one more video later today with the injury report, but for now, I'll catch you guys later.